Thank you, Annie. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. I've heard so much from Annie about Pony Express and from Elliot, and so it's fantastic to actually be here. I know some of you have actually written books already. Is there anyone here in the room who's written books? Raise your hand. Anyone who is thinking about writing a book? Raise your hand. I imagine most of you. Anyone who's actually started a book and not finished it? Okay. So I expect many of you will have actually heard that you should be writing a book and that it will help your business, it will help you get more speaking engagements, it will help you get more clients, it will position you as the go-to person. So I'm going to share some of my story with you, and I hope that it will inspire you and make you feel that make you realise what's actually achievable when you write a book. Now, I suppose 15 years ago, I was in a similar position to, I imagine, some of you. I had set up a business. I was helping people, as Annie said, to write books. And at that time, I came to lots of events like this. I went to lots of seminars because I wanted answers. I was a single parent. I had been living in a refuge, and I wanted to make some money. I wanted to make enough money, not huge amounts of money, I just wanted to make money to pay the bills at that time. And when I heard somebody tell me I should write a book and it would help me get more clients, I thought, well, that's a palaver, isn't it? I haven't got time for that. I don't believe you. I want a quick answer. I want money fast. So I left it for 5 years. I didn't write a book. I went off and did other things. And I was very successful at what I did. But of course, time moved on. I had books I planned to write, but I didn't get round to it. I always planned it to be next year and next year and next year. And time just passed because I was busy looking after my children. As I say, I was a single parent. I was busy running my business. I was busy with clients. And then came the day that I was getting problems with my vision. I started losing the sight in my one eye. And I noticed that things were getting dark in that one eye. And at that time, I was told, I had various tests, I had a year in and out of hospital, and I was told that I might have a brain tumour. And of course, when you're faced with something like that, suddenly you start thinking, okay, well, if I have days left, weeks left, years left, you just don't know. I need to really start thinking about my life and what I want to achieve here. And at that point, I thought, damn, I better write a book. So I did. I did write a book at that time, and this is the book that I wrote, Millionaire Women, Millionaire You. Now, this book, within 6 months, had brought in my first event. I had a joint venture with the Daily Express, so I had my very, very first event that tied in with my business. And we had 3,000 people register for my very first event. I was able to speak on stage with people like Jill Fielding from The Secret Millionaire. I went on to speak on stage with people like Karen Brady from The Apprentice, Rachel Elner, who's in this book, came to speak at my events from Dragon's Den. And there are other benefits. So not only did I get huge media publicity, I was able to go on TV, radio, television, I've just said TV, and magazines. Also the positioning within magazines. I was appearing in magazines with people like Blondie. Yay! Elle Macpherson, even better. And I've forgotten the name of the other person. But anyway, people, famous people. So they were people that I would want to be positioned with. I also got to be in a movie with Bob Proctor and Brian Tracy, who are like my heroes. I've been reading their books only 12 months before and looking for answers from them, and suddenly I was in a movie with them, a motivational movie. I flew to Hollywood first class to be in that movie, and as soon as I got back, I was invited back to be in a second one. So it was very, very exciting, and suddenly people were asking me for JVs. They were mailing their lists. Before, I don't suppose I would have even approached them for JVs, but actually they were coming to me asking for JVs. So now I have people like Jeffrey Archer, for example, phone me and ask me to go to his apartment and talk to him about selling books, how he sells more books, which was fantastic. People like Dan Kennedy, has anyone heard of Dan Kennedy? Actually wants to be in my next book. People like Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, wants to be in my next book. And that's because I positioned myself in such a way, not just with this book, but with my follow-up book, which was Celebrity Author Secrets, which features basically authors who've all sold over 1 million books. So as a result of that, I was able to go and talk to people like the Society of Authors, to Oxford University, and to the Sunday Times Literary Festival, because they all wanted to know about selling books. Prior to that, we'd had a very small consultancy. I'd set up a small consultancy, Oxford Literary Consultancy, to help authors to sell more books, to help them with their editing services and to help them write books. So I'd say the person that told me on stage very early on I should write a book actually should have said, you should write the right book. I had written books in the past. I'd written 2 books prior to this that had had no sales. They'd had no media coverage. They'd had very, very low advances from the publishers. So it's about writing the right book and positioning yourself in the right way. I expect probably some of you have heard other people tell you to write books. Who's heard other people tell you to write books? Raise your hand if you heard that before. Yeah. So there are lots of books at the moment, especially because of self-publishing, that are being produced. And some of them are mediocre. Some of them are actually quite bad. And I'd say people are shooting themselves in the foot at times with the things they're producing. So it's about writing the right book and the book you can be proud of. You know, has anyone here ever read a book that they feel excited about and then they're disappointed by it when they read it? Raise your hand if you found that experience. Okay, so it's about writing the right book, a book you can be proud of, that other people will feel excited about and they'll recommend it to their friends. So what I'd like you to do is, first of all, because actually the difference between writing a good book or a mediocre book and an extraordinary book that will be remembered and other people will talk about is actually a few small tweaks. It's not as big a leap as probably you think. So we'll think about the difference between a mediocre book and how you can make an extraordinary book. Obviously I'm here only for half an hour, so it's a small part of a bigger picture, but I'll give you as much as I can in the time that I've got. So what I'd like you to do, if you've got a pen and paper, or even lodge it in your head if you haven't, is to just jot down, if you could wave a magic wand and produce a book tomorrow, if overnight, magically in the next 24 hours, or even over the space of a weekend, which is doable, it's absolutely doable. If you could produce the perfect book, what would the book be? What would it be about? So I'll just give you... Okay, so we'll hear a few of those and let's see what you've come up with. Okay, raise your hand if you've got a good idea that you feel excited about. Excellent. Lady there.
So just simple theme, triumph over adversity.
Okay, triumph over adversity. Yep, that's something that people need, but obviously you need to spin with a title, but yep, great theme, yep.
Well, I'll give you the title and the subtitle if you like. All you want to know, the consumer guide to boiler replacements.
To what?
To boiler replacements.
Boiler replacements.
Yes.
Okay, lots of people want boiler replacements. Excellent. My in-laws are at it at the moment. Yep, definitely. Excellent. Any others? Yes.
I want to write a practice building book for therapists.
A practice building book for therapists.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, great. Lady behind you.
Hi. I was going to write an autobiography about myself, obviously. It's going to be called Comeback Fighting, and it's about myself suffering childhood leukemia and everything up and onwards, and basically the struggle and how I've survived and empowering others.
Great. Okay, fantastic. All right, those are all good ideas. So we'll think about now how we can elevate those to being magical, inspiring ideas that people will remember and perhaps pass on to other people. So I'm afraid we will have to come back to your front pages. Okay. So let's think about, if we're reading a book that's, say, mediocre or good rather than exceptional, what are the things that would disappoint you in a book? Because you can learn as much from people's mistakes, and often you learn more from people's mistakes, even from your own mistakes, as you do from their successes. What are things that disappoint you in a book? Yeah.
No structure.
No structure. Oops, that doesn't look like a good pen. The fat ones. Ooh. Ta-da! Right, structure.
Unnecessarily convoluted vocabulary.
Okay, the vocab. Yep.
Badly written.
Badly written. Okay, doesn't live up to title. Yeah.
I'm just repeating what somebody else has already said.
Okay. Unoriginal. Characters. I'll put cliche. Yep. Anything else? Random. Okay. So it rambles maybe.
Minimal content spread thin.
Little content. Yeah. Okay.
Or too much content.
Yeah.
It's flowery.
Yeah. So too much content, so it's too dense.
Self-absorbed. Talks about themselves the whole time.
Yep. Self-absorbed or self-indulgent.
And poor research as well. They're like spouting out what they're saying. They're telling a load of facts that aren't necessarily facts. It's just their opinion.
Okay. Poor research. I'll put poor research. Opinion. Anything else? Okay, so working backwards. If we're thinking about this, a lot of the things we're trying to do the opposite. I'd say what most authors do, or most new authors do, they tend to do, is just kind of launch into books. Often people come to me and they've already written their 70,000 words or 90,000 words, and then they kind of box themselves in, because I might say to them, well, actually, there's a better book you could write here. And of course, by that stage, they don't want to rewrite their 70,000 words or their 90,000 words because they've gone too far down the line. So they've finished the book. And just because they're good at that particular subject or an expert in their particular area doesn't mean it translates always. Often it does, but there are equally amounts of time where it doesn't translate into a good book. So you have to plan out the book and map it out before you actually write it. You have to think about the structure, and most importantly, think about your marketing and your market research before you write the book, which I'd say probably 99% of authors don't actually do. They don't do any market research at all. And when I say market research, we're talking about things like positioning yourself against other authors who are writing similar books. How does your book position against theirs? What's different about your book to theirs? Positioning yourself so that you're thinking about who's your target readership. Who is it that you're actually writing for? And your vocabulary. If, for example, in the last couple of weeks, I've been reading a book by somebody who's an expert in their field. And the vocabulary in that book is fantastic if you're someone similar to that person. So if you've got a PhD and you're very, very intellectual, very clever, that book will speak to you. If you're somebody who is not an expert in that field, it'll be much harder to relate to. So you have to be very clear who your target audience is, who your target readers are, and more importantly, what you want to achieve. So a book for the media is going to be a very different book than a book, say, as a lead generator if you want people to come to your business or to come and work with you, or if you want to win a prize. Totally different books. So, for example, to give you an example of how that might work, with my book, Celebrity Author Secrets, that was the book that was sent out to the media when I wanted lots of media publicity for that book. Now, the book that goes out to clients is How to Sell a Million Books, because clients want to know how to sell a million books. That's the most popular question that I get asked. Most journalists really couldn't care less about how to sell a million books, but they love celebrity and they love secrets. So it's the same book, same content, but different purposes. So I'm very clear about what the purposes are for each. One was to get me lots of magazine coverage. One was for clients to inform them and give them advice about basically selling a million books or selling more than a million books. Most people in there have sold over 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, 20 million books. Okay, so a lot of it's about market research beforehand, and you can do this in very simple ways. So, for example, you can go and have a look on Amazon at other authors who've written similar books to you, And you can also look at the comments that have been left by readers, and you can see the negative comments, and you can also see the positive comments. So you can see what people like, and you can see what people dislike, and that can give you an incredible amount of information about where you can position yourself and what's missing or what they feel is missing from books. Title, we're going to come to title in a minute. I'm going to come back to that. Again, unoriginal. Sometimes it's a small tweak. It's very hard when you're writing a book to feel. So, for example, with Annie's book, you know, there's lots and lots of relationship experts out there. And I'm sure any of you in any field can say there's lots of other, whatever, boiler men, people sorting out boilers. There's lots of people writing inspirational books. But what is it that's unique about your particular hook? What is it that's different and exciting about your book that's going to make it memorable? Cliches. Most people can pick out cliches if you show your book to other people and get feedback. Little content spread thinly. Often I think with experts, whether they're coaches, speakers, is they're worried by giving too much information away that people won't come and work with you. There's always that kind of fear that if you give too much content, you're giving away the whole shop. Often I think people just need hand-holding through the process because although they've got the information, they haven't necessarily got the drive to go through and see it through to the end. Too much content, definitely you can feel completely overwhelmed if you get the whole shop all in one go. Self-absorbed, I say this is probably one of the key ones actually. When people write books, often they feel it's a sort of outpouring of their soul, or they work through their own personal issues, which is fine, and there's a place for books like that. But if you are writing one of those books, then again, you have to be clear what's the purpose of the book. Is it that you want to attract people to your business or to work with you? Or is it just going to be for a small circle of friends, close friends, or for your children or for your grandchildren, so they know, for example, about things that have happened to you or you're leaving a legacy for them? Poor research. Poor research. There's no real excuse for that. I can't. I hope that's self-evident to anybody. You can't really not research a book very well. Now, titles. Okay, these are facts that I hope will really, really sink in because they're vital. It takes 8 to 12 seconds for someone to decide whether to buy a book or not. 8 to 12 seconds. And that's whether they're online or in a bookshop. It's a blink, really, or a long blink, I should say. And usually that's based largely on the book cover and the book title. And that's 74% of the buying decision is actually based on the cover and the book title. So the title is absolutely vital. And hopefully, hopefully you'll get that from Annie's title. You know, do you choose your dog more carefully than your husband? She could have called this book How to Have a Better Relationship or How to Find Your Ideal Man. But she chose this title, Do You Choose Your Dog More Carefully Than Your Husband? Because it's funny, it's witty, it's carried out throughout the book. It continues to be funny and witty. It's cleverly written. It's a lovely hook. People remember it. And the fact that she's got 5 awards for that book bears that out. It's a memorable book. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, he's a contributor to my book that I'm writing at the moment. One of the things he shared with me was that his book originally was called Men, Women and Relationships. Of course, everyone remembers now Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. They might not even have read the book. I haven't read the book. I've probably read a couple of chapters of it, but I still remember that book. And a lot of people refer to that as a way of referring to the way that men and women are different and think differently. So what I'd like you to do is to think about your book idea and to come up with a couple of titles for it. And you can work in pairs if you like. Or I should check actually, how much time have I got? 10. Excellent. So what I'd like you to do is come up with a couple of titles and then we'll see what we can do with them. I want you to think about your first title is going to be if the book is a lead generator, if it's for your clients, if you've got people coming to you, and I'm talking about non-fiction books here, I'm not talking about fiction, although I do work with novelists. But I want you to think about, if you're writing a non-fiction book, what are the top questions that your clients ask you? What are the things they really want to know? What are the 3 key questions? And if you phrase it in the same sort of language that they use, what would those titles be if they tied in with your book? Then I want you to think about the media. And the media will be thinking about completely different things. So you're thinking, in that instance, if I was to go into a newsagent and there was something shouting out at me, what would it be? What would the headline be? And how would it tie in with, say, something that's topical at that time? It doesn't matter if you don't get it straight away, because often I can work with clients and we can spend a whole morning doing this. But based on the fact that 74% of the buying decision is based on the book cover and the book title, it's worth doing. Because if you think about it, most people do not spend 74% of the time on that. They usually spend 95% or 99% of the time writing their book, and probably about 5% or 1% of the time choosing the book title and the book cover. So you need to kind of flip that round a little bit and spend a lot more time on thinking about the cover and doing research, checking it out with other people and getting feedback. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to come up with some ideas, and let's see how we get on. Right. Okay, has everyone got at least one title down? No. As I said, you're being put on the spot. Normally I take half a day to come up with these things with people. So, and sometimes I've even had authors. I had an author, I think it was last year or 18 months ago, who actually went into Sydney, a park in Sydney, and actually took the whole load of titles with them, and was testing them with people going by and saying, which of these do you like best? So let's hear a couple of them and see how we get on. Okay, who's brave enough to go? All right, go you first.
Time management for lovers.
Sorry?
Time management for lovers.
Time management for lovers. Okay, yeah, intriguing. Certainly makes you think about it. Excellent. Yeah, intriguing. Excellent. Thank you. Yes, that lady there.
How to succeed as a therapist without selling your soul.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. Yes?
Get through the grit and find the pearl.
Get through the grip and find. I like that.
Get through the grit.
Get through the
find pearl.
Get through the grit and find the pearl. Excellent. Good. Yeah, like that. Yes, gentleman at the back.
Burn the bullshit.
Sorry? Burn the bullshit. Burn the bullshit.
Burn the bullshit.
I think bullshit makes you kind of sit up but burn it, you're kind of like, well, how does that work then?
Burning bullshit beliefs, it's about belief systems, things like that, and there's some exercises within the book where you write down limiting, disempowering beliefs, which you'll then take out, burn them.
Okay, excellent. I mean, as I say, I think things like, like with Dan Kennedy's series of the No Bullshit Guides, it makes you sit up and listen, you get an idea of kind of gritty books and no nonsense books, but I'd maybe work on the title a little bit. Maybe incorporate it, but you need a kind of a different framework for it, I think, in terms of how you write it. Do you write in that way as well? Kind of no nonsense way? Okay.
Very much so.
Excellent. Okay, great. Right. Sorry, thank you. So one of the things we talked about, I said I'd mention Eliot's books. Now, he thought for a long time about what we were going to call the book. He wrote his book, and we talked about what it would be called. He couldn't think what it would be called, and in the end, I said to him, well, Eliot, why don't you just go with Power to Succeed? You know, it works as a brand. It works really, really well. I think it's a really powerful title. And the other thing about this is it's gold. Subliminally, you see gold on the title. It's bold. It looks fantastic. I think it looks fantastic. I'm so proud of Eliot's book. Thanks, Eliot. I think it's a really powerful image. We spent a long time, didn't we, on this cover? We spent a long, originally there was a lion and a cat on it. There were vector images, and in terms of the branding, he's got such a strong brand. He has fantastic seminars. I said, work with your own branding. You don't need to overcomplicate this. And he worked really hard. Worked hard on this. It's beautifully written. Lots of personal touches in there. And the clear thing about this book is he knew that he wanted to get people into his seminars, and that he wanted to give this book away to actually get people into the seminars, and that's what he's using it for. But also, it's an authoritative book. It's a very bold thing to put yourself on the cover of a book. I think you have to be quite strong in yourself and quite grounded in yourself to feel confident about putting yourself out there. But I think it really positions him really well with that. So thank you very much for having me. As I say, hopefully you get lots of information from those free reports, and I wish you absolutely every success with writing your book, because it can absolutely change your life, completely skyrocket your speaking engagements. Yep.
What's your email address?
My email address is oxfordwriters@me.com.
At me.
me.com. Oxfordwriters, all one word, @me.com. Lovely. So thank you for having me. As I say, if you've got any questions, grab me at the end. I'm quite happy to answer any questions, and hopefully speak to you soon. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.